Hi Claire,
Good morning, Andy.
thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. Claire, can I start by asking you to introduce yourself, please?
Sure, my name's Claire Staddon. I'm the Chief Executive of Emmaus Suffolk. Emmaus Suffolk is a local charity that works with and for vulnerable people and those that are vulnerably housed.
Thank you. Claire, I've got 4 questions for you. And the first one is one I ask more or less everybody, partly about yourself and about your team. So how are you looking after yourself during the pandemic, and how have you been supporting your team?
When we first were made aware of it in the end of March, our charity generates over 65% of its income through its own social enterprises, which are our retail shops. So the immediate thing we had to do in March was shut all 3 sites, as everybody else went into lockdown, as we did too. And we furloughed all team members apart from me and 1 support worker. And what we did to start with was immediately just look at how everyone was going to manage, because everybody was stupidly, I don't mean stupidly in a negative way, but just kind of over anxious, and just what the worry about what it really meant was massive, wasn't it, for everybody? Because we didn't have any answers and didn't have any real information. And so the first thing we did, particularly for my furloughed staff, who were just as anxious as our volunteers who were now no longer able to come in, was do an awful lot of pastoral care phone calls. So I made sure that I rang each of my team members in the first week every day, really just to check in on them, to let them know what we were doing, and listen to how they were doing. And we also then started to do a monthly newsletter for everybody, to make sure that everybody felt connected still in the stories about what was going on with each other, and to know that somebody was out there thinking about them. And we did a Facebook page as well, where all our volunteers could sort of connect and talk to each other. So, because actually people felt really abandoned, didn't they, to start with, because being asked not to meet anybody is an enormous ask of people, and not a simple thing, and particularly not when you're already vulnerable and you're already socially isolated. So then just say, oh, and take away all your support mechanisms is a massive thing to do. So I was really, really worried for everybody that we work with, and with everybody that we care about. So me and my support worker basically just sort of got stuck into being there for people, and being there for each other as well, because actually carrying all that on your own shoulders is really hard work, isn't it? And you're worried that you should feel like you should be able to do more. I remember when the first week we came in, we felt really guilty that we were still working and everybody else wasn't, because that's quite, that was kind of like survivor guilt, that our day was reasonably normal, because we still had purpose and drive, and we had to deliver, and we had to be there for other people. But we had sort of 80 people that were sort of sitting there going, what is going on? Tell us something useful. And we didn't really have anything to say. So that was really difficult. And but quite quickly after the first week, we thought we would be twiddling our thumbs and feeling a bit guilty. But actually, because of those pastoral care calls and because of the newsletter, and actually we developed a mental health pack as well, Andy, where we started to deliver packs to everyone's doors that needed them, of simple things like word searches, grown-up colouring books, information about how to help your mental health whilst you're on your own, all sorts of different pieces of things, and a bit of luxury as well, because obviously this lockdown happened just before Easter, didn't it? So very many people didn't have an Easter egg, because they didn't have a chance to get to the shops, and so we were able to distribute. We were donated 200 Easter eggs by a supermarket, so we were able to distribute those, and we were able to put in some little treats. So we'd set up some Easter gifts already through the retail outlets, so we just put them into the packs and gifted them out to people. And surprisingly, it was those little things that made a massive difference. It was the newsletter. It was one volunteer at home offered to write little notes to people. So she wrote the cards, and then I'd take them back to the office and I'd address them to all the people that we were connected to, so that everyone got something in the post, which is also a bit of a treat, and I know it's a bit old-fashioned, but there's something rather lovely about getting a card through the post, isn't there? Just to let people know that we were thinking about them. And so actually, after getting over our survivor's guilt, we actually worked really hard, which was good. I'm not complaining. It was a good hard, because actually we really supported the people that we were already working with, but also working with partners in Ipswich and in Felixstowe. We were able to extend our offer to all the hostels in those two areas, and we were able to provide boredom and mental health packs to all those hostels as well. So we delivered them in bulk, so and gave the same offering, really. So every fortnight, people got a delivery to their door of books, CDs, DVDs, and a little treat to help manage their mental health.
And you?
Oh, yeah, kind of crazy. Yeah, I think I'm definitely fatigued now. And I think what you realise is that because the world keeps shifting under our feet, and I love strategy, and I love working my way around problems and thinking about different ways of managing situations, but that's really been maxed out over the last 4 months. I have to say that, now when the government is rightly, I think, but having to shift things, having to rethink it yet again and sense check, have I got this right for my staff? Have I got this right for my volunteers? Have I got this right for my customers? Have I got it right for me? Is becoming laborious, because you just begin to run out of steam, don't you?
Well, it's interesting that almost all your answer was about other people. That is you, but that's Emmaus as well. It's about being in an environment that's non-judgmental, it's supportive, is empathetic. And everything you said describes that. That's fantastic. Claire, the second question is this. So how are you encouraging and helping people in your local communities, because you need to probably explain where you really are as Emmaus in Suffolk, to look after each other?
Well, the wonderful thing about what we do is it's all about us building our community and enriching the local community. So the people where we're based, we started at the Dales, which is an old pub on Dales Road, the sort of Ferodo Road bridge from Asda. You can go up the hill, and there we are. And it's a community building, not just a shops, because it was an old pub. It's got a car park. We use the two bars as the retail outlet, but actually it's a bit of a TARDIS of a building, Andy, and we've got quite a lot of rooms behind the scenes that people may not even know existed when they came in here when it was a pub, which we've turned into different options. So, obviously we're working with the broader local community, who are still offering us donations, which we're incredibly grateful for. And we put those in, and when we're managing the quarantine process, so we accept donations to Mondays and Thursdays. And what was the cellar is now where we quarantine all those items successfully. Upstairs was living accommodation, but now that's where I'm speaking to you from, in what was the living room. But we've turned the kitchen and old bathroom into a public access laundrette and shower room. So all of the people that we work with volunteering, but also members of the community that need us, can actually bring themselves and their belongings and get themselves clean and washed and sort of fit for purpose again, because and all of those things start to lead into how we build our community's capacity to look after each other. And from that, we've become really, really proud of the fact that we've become quite a safe space. And pre-COVID, we had a community cafe, which actually just was a place to be. a place to hang out. It didn't make us any money, and that wasn't what it was about. It was about, you can have a conversation over a cuppa. I don't think you really have any other way, do you? And so, it's a place where people could just come and be, and people would come for a cuppa every day, and then suddenly they would ask if they could volunteer. And suddenly we had conversations about actually they have needs and support issues that they really haven't talked to anyone else about, because they didn't know that what they were dealing with wasn't okay because they'd normalized it. And we've reach is huge. The community space is actually our most precious item, which at the moment we've lost, but we're working really closely with all the people that we've supported to enable them to still come in. And what we've decided is that we have opened our retail outlet only on a Wednesday to Saturday, so that Mondays and Tuesdays is still a hub offer for people to be able to come in and participate. And there's a sewing bee going on downstairs right now, that happens on a Monday and a Tuesday. We have people that come in and do pack testing and steaming and sorting, and we've got a workshop which we've opened down in the town centre at Sailmakers as well. And the community is about the building people's resilience within the business and within the charity, but then the outreach works within the broader community where we're situated. So local people, especially around the Dales Hub, use us as a pop-in to sort of sense check that when they need a chat, when they need someone to come, when they need to ask for help or advice, we're here. And then they start to help each other. And last Christmas, we were delighted to know that people that had met through coming here, both as customers and as volunteers, had actually got together for Christmas Day, because they all worked out that they were going to be on their own for Christmas Day, so they managed to get themselves together. And the community in Ipswich and Felixstowe is an amazing resource, but it needs help to be resilient in the long term. And it doesn't take massive, deeply expensive interventions. It takes tiny human connections that you can keep those human connections going, and then things work, because people will always find a way of making something work if you give them the chance to.
You've clearly done a lot since I went. You've moved things around, and I would describe it. It's definitely not a building. It's more of an ecosystem. It's like a micro environment within the community that creates that sort of safe bubble. And you definitely reach out. That's brilliant. That's fantastic. Thank you, Claire. My third question is this: so, what has surprised you about how people are managing in this new environment?
Well, it is a massive struggle, and I think there's some really good things that have surprised me and some really worrying things that have surprised me. The worrying things are that people's mental health that would have considered themselves not a worrier about their mental health pre-COVID have got very clear worries and concerns that aren't necessarily related specifically to COVID, but we can see people's level of anxiety going up an awful lot. And there's an awful lot of worries and concerns about the conspiracy theories around COVID and what's really going on with the government. And it's and some of these worries and concerns are really quite non-negotiable with people, and that's a really new experience for us as an organisation. We work with people who are managing their mental health and sometimes struggle, but this is a whole new cohort of people who wouldn't consider themselves having mental health issues. And I think that we need to be really mindful about what the impact is on the general population, where my focus has always been vulnerable people who have socially isolated, and that's a reasonably easily identified cohort of people. But now I think we need to think about how we reach out to the general community to say, you may be feeling in a anxiety that you've never experienced before, and that's okay, but you need to don't just sit with it. Find routes, engage with services. There's loads of people that will be able to help, but these are people that have never really thought that they needed to ask for help, and we need to make sure that A, we legitimize the way that they're feeling, and B, that we find routes for them to find the solution. That doesn't mean that I have all the answers, or that you, Andy, have all the answers, but I know that there is a wealth of organisation and services out there, but we need to encourage people to see that as a successful step and not a failure that they have to ask for help. And I think that we all need to partner together to make sure that's a really positive message rather than a negative one. And secondly, I think that I'm so thrilled with the amount of people that have pulled together. I mean, our cohort of people were very anxious about the whole experience and the risks, and yet they also wanted to reach out to others. So, as I say, we had a volunteer that sort of went home but was delighted to write 60 cards every 2 weeks, just with a little message to let people know that somebody was thinking about them. And we had a whole sewing bee group of people making masks, which has continued. And now we, if you come to any of our shops in Ipswich, at the Dales, at Sailmakers in the town centre, or in Felixstowe at Great Eastern Square, you can there's a bag of face masks. So I don't know about you, Andy, but I've been rubbish about bringing my own reusable bags to the shops, and now it's a mask as well, and I totally endorse that, but I completely forget. I've walked the dog only last week to the co-op to get some milk, and then went, I can't actually go in because I haven't got my mask.
Send the dog in.
No, I should have done that. You're right. So it's that whole, but the fact that our cohort of people who are people would generally think of the people that we need to look after are also recognizing that they can make a difference to others, and that they understand what it feels like, and they really want to help everybody else, and that resilience is really mind-blowing, that actually people in difficulty are really able to recognize and help others in difficulty. And that gives me hope, really, ultimately human beings are pretty special things.
Very, very, very intricate, complicated, special things. Your first point about new people presenting themselves with mental health issues is corroborated by the whole system. Mental health, secondary care, other charities like Self and Mind have all been expressing that. And that's a scary thing, isn't it, if it's happening to you for the first time? But it's also amazing describing the positiveness, the positivity, where maybe the public would look at the people that you're supporting and think they just need support, and yet they're actually there to support as well. You mentioned earlier in the interview about having purpose. It's part of your emotional needs, isn't it? To have purpose, and you're giving them purpose, which is brilliant. So the last question is about the future. What learning and challenges do you think will come from this outbreak?
Well, it's been a really interesting journey for us, and we will never lose the value and the need for people to meet face to face. But we have recognised that there's opportunities to engage with people whilst they can't come on site. And I think that that's definitely something that we will enrich within our service in the long term, because that we've had quite a few people that would have liked to come to volunteer with us, but their social anxiety has been so high that they haven't been able to leave their house. And previously to COVID, that would have meant that we would have said, when you're ready, come, but this is not something that really we can support you in the long term at the moment. And I think we've really changed our viewpoint on that. And so I think we've recognised that actually we have resilience and resources within not just our staffing team, but as I mentioned, our cohort of other volunteers, that actually they could do telephone befriending and enabling people to have a relationship and have a sense of community and have a sense of participation whilst managing much more challenging support issues than generally we would have thought that we would have been able to help with. One of the things that we did in the mental health packs was we've been funded for the mental health packs until Christmas, which is fantastic, and we've really started to work with some fantastic tiny organisations that have a really specific cohort, like the Syrian refugees, and all the way through to Home Start as well, with families. So because a lot of us have been able to get back to some semblance of pre-COVID life, but many haven't, and many are still self-isolating or shielding or just managing a new way of looking at the world that they've never experienced before. And we want to push this offer out to more and more people. What we're asked all our volunteers to do this month is perhaps identify somebody in their street that might benefit from one of our mental health packs, and we're offering them out through our shops as well. So we can see that actually between now and Christmas, and well possibly into the new year, that until we're all able to move about and get on with our daily lives without any restrictions, and we don't have a timeline on that, we can help people with a very small intervention that we know will make a big difference. And I think I am humbled, to be honest, Andy, what a small thing can have such a big impact. But it's good to know. It's good to know that there's always more to do, isn't there? There's always more. But actually, small kindnesses make a big difference.
Absolutely. That's the impact, isn't it? That's brilliant. Thank you so much. It's a good, lovely note to end on, Claire. Thank you for your time and for your thoughts.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you very much for asking me, Andy.